welcome to this premiere episode of PressPoint, your ultimate come-to channel for all things news and news meaning stories that bring depth and context to the issues shaping the nation. From time to time, we will make it a habit of deep diving into breaking events as well as news that has already broken and just chilling in a corner unseen and unnoticed. If it's pressing enough, we'll find it, shine a spotlight on it, and then it will be up to you, buddy, to see what you can do about it. From stories on the home ground, the continent, as well as news that seems out of this world, you will get it right here. My name is Paul Mungalambuvi, and thank you for joining us. Since I don't want to gamble with your time, let's jump right into it. So, after 2 years of Rigathi Gachagua alias Wamunyoro laying traps around State House to try and stab off a handshake, it happened, guys, regardless.
Hiyo ikulu nimeweka mitego kila kona, kila pale, kila bahali nimeweka na niko na watu.
I know many Kenyans were eager to support him in shielding us from another handshake, but unfortunately, I don't think setting traps would have been the effective strategy here. It's like trying to stop random girls from hitting on your boyfriend or putting lipstick on his shirt. They will be like, tunataka huyo wa lipstick kwa shati. Boyfriend snatchers will always have a strategy. Also, would it have been easier for Rigathi Gachagua to just face Ruto and say, I know you are seeing someone behind my back. Yeah, stop it. Love analogies aside, Ruto did not always want to do this because sharing is not necessarily a good thing, and where government is concerned, the fewer you are, the bigger the portion. Remember that shareholding thing? Yeah. But if your life and survival depends on a handshake, hell yeah. You'd go down on your knees, stretch your unpopular hand in the direction of Raila, and atone for your past statements. Here is William Ruto.
We must not build our politics around individuals. We must build our politics around institutions.
And as a believer in running an accountable government, our position is that we should never be in the position that this country was put by the handshake.
Okay, give us a clean take.
Ndugu yangu mkubwa Raila Amolo Odinga, kwa kunishika mkono na kuunganisha Kenya mzima.
Tumesema tunataka kuunganisha Wakenya wote wawe kama kitu kimoja, ili vijana waweze kupata ajira.
Yeah, right. You've just heard how crucial shaking of hands is for unity. And I know you are thinking, but this handshake will choke the opposition, kill oversight and completely eliminate all important checks and balances. You know what? You're right. That's exactly what it's meant to do. When people are united like, Ruto and Raila are, they now need checks and balances. Oh, okay, my bad. They need checks. Spelled slightly different though, yeah? Now, for a country like Kenya, which has had handshakes since antiquity, this free-rolling oversight, devoid environments have been perfect for solving the country's most troublesome issues. And with every situation of incompetence, unity has always arisen. Remember when Mzee Daniel Moi was also faced with the challenge of uniting the country, creating jobs and bringing down the price of unga and things like that? He shook hands with young Raila, who was already adept at economics. And although the ending of this relationship was somewhat acrimonious, with Raila's NDP disuniting itself from KANU in the famous episode of Tinga Kunguruma Ndani ya Jogo, this did not stop Emilio Mwai Kibaki from declaring, kama baya ni baya, hata mimi nitasalimia Raila. And kusalimiana they did. But the honeymoon was short-lived. Kibaki started putting passwords on his phone and spared no cash for Bay's outings, which created an outcry.
Waziri mkuu anakuja kwa sherehe kubwa kama na hii ya serikali, PC hakuna. Unaambia PC mmeenda Nairobi.
That's like a generational sin, or should I call it a fetish. Uhuru too couldn't refrain from giving it a shot. The Uhuru-Raila handshake ended with Raila's allies blaming Uhuru for not signaling the deep state to intervene and hand Raila a win in the 2022 elections. And this was a major low for Raila's people, given the very high hopes that his people had with the handshake, and by extension, the system also known as the deep state.
But every time we win the elections, we are robbed of that victory. That victory is known to the whole country, but we never go to State House. And that's something which we are missing is called system.
The system obviously didn't deliver as per Uhuru's forecast. And fast forward to 2025, and we have yet another high voltage handshake. Helpful or inevitable? Depends on who you ask. But we can agree the cracks were showing after the Gen Z protests climaxed on June 25th, 2024. Wamunyoro and Wasugoi weren't on the same page anymore, with Raila stepping in to rescue the boat. Ruto promised him a job far away at the AU so that he can only come home once in a while. It's almost like sending your teenage son to go stay with his uncles because he plays annoying music at night. But in your heart of hearts, you know he will always come back. Now, unfortunately, Ruto and Raila's mission to unite Africa imploded at the end. It's almost as if all the AU babes saw Raila step into the room and they were like, we don't like your vibe, man.
I am a father of 4, a grandfather of 5, and a husband of 1 that I know of.
So they popped their balloons. So many factors were blamed. Diplomatic fumbles, geopolitical problems, language barrier that made it impossible to reach Francophone Africa. Which makes me wonder, Raila and Ruto are pretty good at dialects. Haven't you heard Musangarire? Musangarire, anda kamese, mwadhani yako sure. So why did it not work for French? At this point, I can only make 2 deductions. That French is a difficult, language. And secondly, no one can unite Africa. Not even this guy. So handshake mode in high gear. These 2 gentlemen wanted to show that the people were behind it. You know, the typical use the people to legitimize a political fraud kind of thing. On one side, the rapid consultations were happening. And on the other hand, something else was happening. Raila's allies were taking up plum jobs in parliament. If you were to ask me, this doesn't make any sense at all. Like, it doesn't. It's like asking your friends if you should marry Dixon while you've already ferried a basket of clothes to his place and you've already paid for the cake and the wedding dress. Hey, Jack, should I marry Dixon? Aki woye, ni advice yako nategemea. And then immediately, after you're done calling your girl Jackie, you are on the other phone with your tailor. Hey, Fundi, when can I fit my dress? Like, who does that? Who does that? Raila, of course. The truth is, Kenyans are just rubber stamps in these political games. Does it hurt? No, it doesn't. It hurts really bad. So, President Ruto and Honorable Raila Odinga, if you want to be together, just be together, all right? You don't have to say it's the people who asked us to be together. The people of Kenya, especially the youth, may not have bought into the political deal you've just struck, but don't for a second think that because they haven't endorsed it, they won't hold you accountable for the premise upon which this handshake was made. You may have been joking when you said you needed a handshake to fix the problems of this country, for SHA to work, to fix the cost of living and youth unemployment, for abductions to end, tackling corruption, and even to fix the broken education system. There is actually something that we use in this country that is supposed to address issues such as those of accountability, the fight against corruption, and the safeguarding of rights. Take a guess. What could it be? It is called the Constitution. Inside there, you'll read something about the right of the Kenyan child to access quality education no matter where they are in the republic. There is something about the rights that shouldn't be compromised, delayed, or negotiated. If you're a parent and you get a text saying, on Monday, we will not be picking up your daughter because of an outstanding school fees balance, you don't rush to your neighbor to shake their hand or, give them a hug and ask if they will, they still like your face before paying the fees. No, you just clear the balance alongside ensuring that your child has got food, shelter, and clothing. And that's how rights work. You don't need to be in a good mood to fulfill them. And that's just how it is. Now, if the Kenyan political situation gives you migraines, you will need to check into a medical facility for a checkup. And that's why you should take a moment to reflect on our nation's state of healthcare and the situation with SHIF, the Social Health Insurance Fund managed by SHA. Now, for those of you who are already lost in the acronyms, SHA stands for Social Health Authority and not Shifting Healthcare Agenda, all right? So SHIF is a revolutionary healthcare insurance framework that's supposed to take us to the future. sometime last year, our government, in all its wisdom, decided to take a bold step after trying so hard to control the cartels they said were fleecing NHIF. They thought, you know what, we'll just drop the whole thing and start afresh with something more sassy, with the transition alone costing upwards of 100 billion Kenya shillings. That's like putting up a new house just because a few thieves broke into your old house and you do not want to upgrade your security system. Who does that? I mean, seriously, who?
Safaricom Chief Executive Officer Peter Ndegwa indicated that the Integrated Healthcare Information Technology System, IHTS, would cost 104 billion shillings.
Convergence ni kampuni hapa Kenya na ni sisi wa Kenya hapa ambaye pia Safaricom waliona kwamba kwa sababu ile kazi wanafanya waje pamoja wafanye kazi hiyo, kwa sababu hawangeweza kufanya, Safaricom hawangeweza kufanya zile model zote, wangehitaji makampuni zingine wafanye pamoja.
Translation. Huyu ni kijana wetu wa nyumbani, mpatia kule hii and I'm sure atafanya kazi mzuri. Despite watu wa nyumbani getting the tender, the scheme has been beset with accountability challenges. So basically in this country, there are two ways of losing money. Either upfront or later on in a slow, painful, unseen installments. But like the president would say, these are just minor challenges. There's nothing to see here. Nothing.
Nimefanya consortium kubwa. Tukasema we are going to have a consortium of technology companies that is going to make sure that there are no fraudulent claims in SHA.
Report by the Auditor General laid bare how deductions to SHA and deductions from health facilities alongside track and trace solution have ended up in untraceable accounts on a daily basis.
So what exactly are these independent institutions saying about SHIF?
The Auditor General has released a report showing that the Healthcare Information Technology Digitization System that cost taxpayers a whopping 104.8 billion shillings is under control of private investors and not the government. The consortium in control would charge fees from member contributions to Social Health Authority, claims from health facilities, and charge for the track and trace solution, resulting in projected revenues of 111 billion shillings.
And for these gross inefficiencies, Kimani Ichung'wah was on hand to deliver an apology, right?
But because they're independent offices, they imagine if anyone speaks about them, the whole world will come crumbling down, saying, oh, you're attacking independent offices. Their independence can never go without being checked, and it is only Parliament that can check these independent offices, and even the office of the Auditor General, Honorable Speaker.
Who hurt this man? His soul is redder than the sole of his shoes. But I digress. Back to the point. Back to the press point. See what I did there? No? All right. Now, I'm not saying that the Auditor General or the control of budget are angels. Oh, no. That's not what we're about in this particular country. But hey, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. If someone tells you that they are seeing a squirrel, why would you insist it's an elephant? Without evidence, of course. Also, I know this isn't a gender issue, but I'll risk it anyway. If a woman tells you, babe, there is something we need to talk about, just know that babe has receipts. Now imagine these two are women. How much more do you think they know about SHIF? Religion. One of those things you shouldn't talk about recklessly because it can lead to one of two outcomes. It could either deny you a chance at heaven or it could take you there abruptly. And trust me, you won't get to choose the means.
Okay, blessed people, thank you so much. The Lord bless you. Amen. Yes, I will see you. So you guys are going by road, eh?
Yes,
just watch the vehicles on the road because the road is a bit tricky. Yes, and then we'll meet there. You're coming to Riverside Drive.
Sorry, the video may not be so clear, but I hope the message is clear enough. We are not here to talk about faith for the sake of faith because that would be outright irresponsible. But we are here to discuss where faith deeply intersects with politics and how all too often it gets hijacked for partisan political interests. When we talk about faith in this country, we'll do so from the perspective of strengthening and refining it, especially among young people who are increasingly drifting away from the grace. Now, I'm starting to sound like a preacher, aren't I? But let's be clear. Just because a few bad actors are in the position of power at places of worship doesn't mean that religion itself is flawed. Faith is still great. It is a source of solace when we need it most, like when SHIF stops working, or SHA, or Shisha, or SHIF, whatever you call it. Where do we turn to in such times? To church for health miracles, right? But I won't dwell on that for now. Unfortunately, every election cycle, we see religious groups endorse candidates simply because they've shown interest in their faith. This often clouds the faithful ability to critically evaluate these candidates' manifestos, especially at the county and presidential levels. And after the elections, when these so-called anointed candidates fail to deliver on their promises, the same religious organizations that back them up remain silent because they are compromised or that they will cry and sob like us ordinary folk.
Why don't you return to the manual book? So you can fix what you can't fix. As a voter, I'm embarrassed. And the next election, you must convince me.
The controversial sermon of FEM evangelist Teresia Wairimu hit the government. Here's the thing. Just because someone says Salam Alaikum or praise Jesus or hallelujah doesn't mean everything is said. It's just the start of a conversation. Right now, the conversation should be, yes, you've said Salam Alaikum or Christos Ifiwe, but what are you doing about healthcare, unpaid help loans for students, universities without proper funding, junior secondary schools that, have never launched, and doctors who haven't been paid? If faith can motivate these leaders to deliver, then that's fantastic. And what's this business with regular church fundraisers, even when we've all agreed that they compromise the soul of the church? Is giving to religious institutions bad? Absolutely not. But giving obscene amounts, like 20 million, or even promising 100 million to compromised entities while children in certain areas are sitting on tree stumps, that's not just bad. It's bordering on religious wickedness. You might ask, is it wrong for any leader to offer financial support to religious institutions, hoping it will inspire the faithful to vote for them in the future, say during the 2027 elections? Yes, that's actually what you would call bribery. By now, we've all agreed that God himself can't fly down here and take the tithes and offerings. So we can only hope that his able representatives like Reverend Edward Kaongo Mwai and others can safely take it to court. For those who give large offerings just to get the congregation cheering and clapping, what happened to the principle that the left hand shouldn't know what the right hand is doing? All right, let's break this down realistically. President Ruto, the generous giver-in-chief, let's do some math to see just how sustainable or unsustainable this really is. All right? Let's say there are about 1,000 evangelical New Age charismatic pastors in Nairobi alone, each one expecting a 20 million upfront love offering, plus a further 100 million in pledges from your unnamed friends, right? So that's 120 million per pastor times 1,000 pastors. Wait a minute, I'm not doing this, all right? And you still haven't paid Reverend Shiti is 120 million. And as for those on the receiving end, doesn't the good book say that if something causes you to lose your place in the kingdom of heaven, you should cut it off? Or if your actions, however well-intentioned, cause someone else to stumble in their faith, shouldn't you choose to refrain from it altogether?
Mimi mwenyewe nitatoa milioni 20 kwanza.
Earlier in November of 2024, the Nairobi Catholic Archdiocese had returned a donation of 5.6 million shillings from President Ruto and Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja, citing a policy that discourages political donations to churches, a move that was today met with criticism from President Ruto.
Mr. President, we know you're great at inventing things. How about creating a SHA or SHIF for the church? Because it's working so well already. You care so much about the church. Why not create a fund where politicians like yourself contribute a portion of their monthly salaries? Then churches can borrow from it at a reduced interest rate, say 0%. All right? You could call it the SHIF, CHIF, or Holy Fund. And hey, no need to pay me for that idea, okay?
We don't discriminate against anyone based on their affiliation or stature in society.
And that is PressPoint. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Hope to see you on the next one.